Shall I begin? Is it good? This is fine. Right. So I am the youngest of the 5 grandchildren, working with me at the office, and but also working with our mother. So I live next door to our mother in Petaluma, and after she launched the foundation and working with Deans and getting that going, she finally had time to do some of her own work in her own design. And so that's sort of what has evolved in the last 20 years, is her taking her designs and trying them out on paper and then making them in different metals, because we had a shop on the property. We also, our mother became allergic to the way she used to produce work. So when I was growing up, and Dean's growing up too, she would actually give me power tools for my birthday, buy my steel-toed boots because I welded next to her. And then what happened is she became allergic, so we had to find another way to produce her work, which was laser cutting. And there's a company right in Petaluma that normally does airplane parts, but in this case, we adapted to working with us, taking scans of her drawings and then scaling them up, usually to about 5 to 10 feet, because that was the sheets of metal. And what was also interesting is I work in bronze as a sculptor. She worked in aluminum, stainless steel, and steel. She could work in bronze, but everything had to be hand done with the individuals that we worked with, because otherwise it reflected back into the machine and burned out the machine. So a lot of learning over these years in developing this. And what we're starting with here is, over the last 5 years, or I'd say 8 years, guests would come up to Petaluma. It was fun to walk through your offices here, because as a thank you to groups that were buying Eames furniture in the United States for like offices in Silicon Valley, a thank you was to bring them up for lunch, the design team, and have lunch with Mom and me, and Mom and I would tell stories about growing up with Charles and Ray and lessons we learned, and they would also see Mom's work at her home. So then they would ask, could we borrow some pieces to have back at the office of your work, because it really sums up lessons learned from Charles, honest use of material, trying out different materials, very hands-on. So that now culminated with last year, we did a show at Google. They have a new facility, which everything is, they're going for zero waste in this particular structure. And so the 3 architects who came then said, could we borrow pieces for 6 months to have her staff? Charles and Ray's work, my mother's work, and my work. And then it lasted for a year. And then it just finished in February. And then they asked me there were 4 pieces, this was one of them, that the head of the department, she is up in the highest top 5 of the corporate ladder at Google for her office. And this one is Star Dance Series by my mother. And so she loved it so much she didn't want it to go, along with 4 other people who did not want the pieces to go to. So it was really a very rewarding experience to see Mom's work stay there after having such a great show. And I think, was it Nora has been to see that show?
Yeah, Nora was there for that.
Oh, okay.
When she visited Google last year.
Because Google was celebrating all this learning that they put into this building. And what's interesting is the architects who designed it had to be there for the next 3 years. So they're still there. Oh. They're seeing how well what they designed works.
Their
offices. Their offices are now there to see how well.
If only that could happen a lot.
This is an interior of the structure with the hearts below of Mom. Everything is green, and we were trying to make it very flexible for the installation. This is when you first enter the office at this Google facility. This is where you check in with the chain of hearts of Moms hanging down, like the one that's right in front of me, China. There it is. That's how it was in the exhibit, was behind in this chair in this working space. So seeing your spaces, how people work, was really interesting also. And they really loved having this artwork as a backdrop. And these are about 7 to 8 feet tall. And it works with these high ceilings. And so for this one, we did it out of 1/4-inch aluminum for these pieces. It still kept the tautness of the material. It could be reflective, but it also was very clean. Mom would say each piece is intended to be a pleasing, unobtrusive, functional addition to the landscape, indoor or outdoor, and to achieve the elegance or lightness of design which offers both service and surprise and delight, save for the owner lifting a magazine or a plant off the tabletop, and for a visitor pausing to look more closely. And then this is a larger version of what you see here, the paperweight, and the eyes with the heart. Can you guess what it says? To see with your heart. That's something Mom always would say. And then this is the Sunburst series, which started as a series that she did for an electric company. She thought it'd be very funny to have solar images at an electric company, and so this was over at Berkeley. So she's done many iterations of her work at different scales. And the pieces that, the negative space that drop out, she reuses it another way. So she uses the whole sheet after it's cut. So the reflective part. She loved the rawness of the aluminum of the metal. And actually on this particular one, it has Kaiser on it, which was Ray's maiden name. So she liked having that little nod.
Sometimes protective film.
Yeah, exactly. She left it on. And then the different versions of the film strips. Having grown up and spending time in Los Angeles, this was one of her, she did several homages to growing up with Charles and Ray, and this was one, and she called these the cutting room floor with all the films. And then nesting tables. She was always very aware that people had limited space, or how things could nest up together and then pull apart. And then a new era began. This is the part. The reason this came about is this new era when she could be up in Petaluma, having the time to focus on her work and build pieces for her home. So this is at her home between the two structures. The architect Turnbull faced this towards the east, so you saw the sun and the moon rising, and then this gate was right below. That's the house. That's where she always began her designs, is up in the house.
She went there, right?
Yes,
Right. And then this is the front gate she designed for her home. She figured as the grass got longer outside, she could have that be sort of a gateway. And then the courtyard could always be green even as it got brown. Much like Charles and Ray with the meadow, letting it go brown when it went brown and then stay green and not worry. Principally, I think in terms of designing for the garden, I find sweet pleasure and terrifying challenge in designing to meet a need, be it with a balustrade, gate, bench, panels, tables, door, and screen. So this is a gate that when she grew up and spent time out in the Ozarks, the gate was often the last thing standing. So she made it the first thing standing and called it Zen Gate. And it also marked where we kept the grass short around the buildings 100 feet from the house. So at different times of year, there would be grass as a backdrop to it. And if the gate was open, animals would actually walk through the gate. And then that's the barn where we actually fabricate the pieces. They're about 500 feet apart. We love your blankets. Your blankets are all over. So this notion of an each generation show, when the centennial happened for Charles in 2007 and Ray in 2012, that's when this interest of seeing that Mom had in sword lessons, studied photography with Charles, also with Ray studying painting, people became interested in what Mom had done. And so that's when it started. When the exhibit on Ray was upstairs at the California Museum, downstairs was some work with Mom and me downstairs, and those are some of Mom's panels to the right. And so through this, we gave talks to universities and also started planning other shows because they wanted to understand Mom's process. I guess we just growing up with a mom who welded was normal, so it wasn't. People wanted to hear more about it. And you're going to see some butterflies start to appear. That's another homage you're going to see to Charles and Ray, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then those are some of those drops I told you about from the sunburst that she started doing arrangements of. And I just love the shadow of the film strip. Shadows are a very important part of my mother's work. She would often line things up for solstices so that at certain times of year they would change. This is another show. This is the entrance to an LA modernism show. So you have photography of Charles, my work, and my mother's work up there, and the beautiful bird welcoming everybody. And then that's one of the cutting room floors. She also would do film strips curled on the ground, which we would spill over in different directions. Again, there was another show more recently in their front office. So again, taking that butterfly pattern, the positives and the negatives in the pieces as hanging pieces. Those are tabletops. Mom had a great sense of humor. She would have thought it was funny to have exit sign over your heart. She and Charles, I think, great punsters.
Exactly.
And then this is another series you see her develop with the drops. It's called Summer Solstice, a 24-hour day. She called those solar X-rays. And so you have Charles and Ray's house of cards up on the left, and then a bouncing ball by me. But what we did for this particular piece, we took a photograph she had taken of eucalyptus bark and anodized it into the aluminum tabletop to give it another color and another reflection for the piece. And yet you still get the shadow of the butterflies on the ground. And then those are more butterflies on the left, which you'll see a close-up with the house of cards.
So you produce, as these things, you produce still in the same place?
In small batches,
Yeah.
in just small batches. And then this has been sort of a traveling show, but we keep adding something to the next venue.
Okay.
But now we're reaching a point where we have many choices, but we just want to pick maybe a few that we think to capitalize on and to focus. Some of the smaller pieces, and then maybe some large panels for exhibit pieces. But this is sort of what we're thinking about and just considering at this point.
Okay.
What are the tables made out of?
The tables are the LTRs, and then the butterflies are aluminum. Those are 1/4-inch aluminum. Some are 1/2-inch.
And what are they on?
They're plain. Those are just natural. But those are LTRs. Low.
Okay, the whole
So
outfit.
it's a laminated, it's a black laminate.
Okay.
Yeah. They're just resting on it. But there has been talk of doing the embossed or something. You know, there's different ways to do it. But right now they're just resting on
Okay.
them.
There it is.
The designs play with positive and negative spaces in varying proportions that can be positioned to cast striking shadows in contrast or to blend with other patterns such as the dazzled light and leaves in the garden or colors and forms of a Persian rug. So our mother did many cutouts just with scissors, not even a razor blade, and seeing which way worked.
I thought that was a razor blade. She said, no, this is.
Just
Oh, really?
scissors.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
This is pen and ink, I have to say, for this one. She did a proposal for the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is what you're about to see now. But the technology wasn't, this is 25, 30 years ago. The technology wasn't sophisticated enough to make such perfect cuts. You could do that today easily, but it was not precise enough.
Beautiful.
In the garden, a gate can invoke smiles, open or shut. A screen functions as pure pleasure in itself while it awaits the twining of honeysuckle. A bronze table blends in richly whether viewed from a window, standing on its own, or welcoming guests and receiving a tea tray. And that's one of my favorite parts of my mother's work, is the shadows. It's amazing. So she was always doing this work. That date was 1974. This is 1994. But she never really had that time to focus on her work the way she did the last 20 years. So that's why she revisited some of these pieces again, and with the technology had caught up, we could mass produce them in a way we couldn't for these exhibits. So in this piece that I enjoyed, you have the bronze bench with an aluminum cloud bench. The sun is nested into the clouds. And so what her metaphor was, there's always a silver lining to something. And then you have the quartz and steel is the piece on the right. So you have 3 materials that she works in this particular piece. And so this homage to the Eames house began with, she always loved spending time there. We all did. We have great memories being there. There she is when she's founding the foundation to protect the house. I care deeply, viscerally, emotionally, intellectually, passionately for the Eames house, for its loving, enduring family focus, for its shining example of concentric community, for its concise, iconic design. So when she founded us on the board, so I mean it's amazing, and we just I just wanted to add, we so appreciate Vitra's support for the house. I mean I just was at Member Appreciation Day, and to see people still loving being there, learning from